A massive sinkhole swallows a stretch of Los Angeles freeway in broad daylight, and everyone who falls into it wakes up somewhere that shouldn't exist. This is the premise that launched one of NBC's most talked about sci-fi dramas. And in this video, we're breaking down exactly how the very first episode sets that mystery in motion, the family at the center of it, the world they're thrown into, and the twist that redefines everything by the final scene. Stay spoiler light in the first few minutes if you haven't seen it, because we're about to go deep. Brea premiered on NBC in 2021, created by David Applebaum. It blends science fiction, mystery, and family drama, following a Los Angeles family separated when a sinkhole opens beneath the city and drops part of the population into a primeval, prehistoric landscape, while others remain in the present day trying to understand what happened. The show streams on NBC with next-day availability on Peacock in the US. It carries a respectable rating in the mid-6 range on IMDb, reflecting a fanbase that responded strongly to its ambitious premise even as critics were split on execution in later seasons. The pilot opens with an ordinary Los Angeles morning that turns catastrophic within minutes. A sinkhole tears open beneath a busy freeway interchange, and a cross-section of ordinary people, commuters, a mother and her 2 children, emergency responders, are pulled down into the earth. Rather than dying, they wake up in a lush, wild landscape that bears no resemblance to the city above. As survivors regroup and try to make sense of where they are, a family fractured by the disaster becomes the emotional core of the story. A mother and son who fell together, a father and daughter left behind on the surface, all searching for a way back to one another. By the end of the hour, the true nature of where the sinkhole survivors have landed is revealed, setting up the series' central mystery. The episode begins by establishing the family at its center during a stressful, everyday morning, packing lunches, arguing about a therapy appointment, the small frictions of a marriage under strain. The mother is driving her teenage son to school when the freeway gives way beneath them. The father, separately, is with their daughter when the disaster strikes on a different stretch of road, meaning the family is split between 2 very different fates from the opening minutes. As the sinkhole opens, we see the visceral chaos of the collapse, vehicles sliding into the abyss, dust and debris, panicked bystanders. The mother and son are among those who fall all the way down rather than being caught on the upper ledges of the sinkhole, which becomes an important distinction. Some characters remain trapped closer to the surface, while others are transported much further. When the mother wakes, she's disoriented, injured, and searching frantically for her son amid a crowd of shaken strangers, none of whom recognize the place they've landed in. Instead of rubble and freeway wreckage, they find themselves surrounded by dense, untouched wilderness unlike anything in modern Los Angeles. The episode spends real time letting this disorientation build naturally. Characters try cell phones that don't work, look for landmarks that aren't there, and slowly realize the scale of what's happened. Back on the surface, the father is dealing with a very different crisis, coordinating with emergency services, trying to get information from an increasingly overwhelmed and confused response effort, and grappling with the fact that his wife and son have vanished into a hole that swallowed a chunk of freeway. His storyline in this episode is defined by helplessness and urgency. He's a man trying to force answers out of a situation with none yet available, while also caring for his daughter, who becomes a quietly important presence throughout the hour, down in the unknown landscape. Tension escalates as the group of survivors begins encountering signs that this is not simply a cave system or remote canyon. Wildlife that doesn't belong in contemporary California starts appearing at the edges of the story, glimpsed rather than fully shown at first, which the episode uses effectively to build dread rather than immediately explaining itself. The mother, meanwhile, is also dealing with a medical detail introduced early in the episode. She is dealing with a health issue that becomes relevant to her arc, adding personal stakes to her situation beyond simply surviving and finding her son. The son becomes separated from his mother shortly after the fall, giving the episode to searches happening in parallel below ground. the mother looking for her child, and a wider group of survivors trying to figure out whether rescue is even possible. This mirrors the father's search from above, creating a structural rhythm where the episode keeps cutting between three linked but separated searches: father for family, mother for son, and the group collectively searching for understanding. As the episode moves toward its climax, survivors below start piecing together fragmented, unsettling clues about where, and, crucially, when, they might actually be. Small physical details in the environment, rather than any single dramatic reveal, are what tip characters off that something is deeply wrong with their assumptions about simply being lost in a remote wilderness. The episode's climax arrives when the true scale of the mystery becomes undeniable. Characters encounter direct, unmistakable evidence that they are not just somewhere remote, but someone else, that the landscape around them belongs to a prehistoric era rather than the present day. This reveal recontextualizes everything the audience has watched up to that point, transforming what looked like a survival in the wilderness story into a time displacement mystery. The episode closes on the emotional through line rather than the spectacle. The mother, now aware of just how impossible her situation is, remains focused on finding her son, while above ground the father is left with no answers and a widening gulf between himself and his family. The hour ends on a note of unresolved dread and determination rather than a clean resolution, setting the stage for the series to explore both the mechanics of this strange world and the emotional cost of the family's separation. The mother is the emotional anchor of the sinkhole survivors, practical and resilient under pressure. She's introduced mid-crisis in her marriage, which adds complexity to her motivations. She's not just fighting to survive, she's fighting to reunite a family that was already fracturing before disaster struck. The father remains on the surface, and his defining trait in this episode is proactive desperation. He refuses to accept bureaucratic dead ends and pushes hard against the limits of what authorities can tell him, establishing him as someone who will go to significant lengths throughout the series to get his family back. The son is thrust into the underground world without his mother nearby for much of the episode, forcing him into an early test of independence and resourcefulness that the show uses to develop him beyond simply being the kid who needs rescuing. The daughter, left above with her father, plays a quieter role in the premiere, but is positioned as an emotionally perceptive presence, someone processing the disaster in her own way while her father focuses outward on solutions. The surrounding survivors, introduced in the sinkhole world, function collectively. In this first episode, a cross-section of strangers whose group dynamic, who leads, who panics, who adapts, starts to take shape and will clearly matter more as the series continues. The defining twist of the premiere is the reveal that the sinkhole didn't just transport survivors to a remote or unknown location. It transported them across time, into a prehistoric version of the same land the city now sits on. The episode earns this reveal gradually, through environmental storytelling rather than exposition, which is a big part of why it landed so effectively with first-time viewers. The episode ends without giving its characters, or its audience, a mechanism for how or why any of this happened. Instead, it ends on separation, the mother and son still searching for each other in an environment now confirmed to be far stranger and more dangerous than a simple wilderness, and the father left above ground with no clear path to reach them. This ending works because it commits fully to the mystery rather than rushing an explanation, establishing the show's format of parallel timelines, present-day Los Angeles above, and this displaced era below, that the series builds on going forward, because detailed trivia, symbolism, and Easter egg information for this specific episode is something I can confidently verify without risking inaccuracy. I won't speculate here. If there are specific hidden details or references you've heard about, I'm happy to help evaluate or discuss them. This premiere functions as the foundation for the entire series structure. The surface, past world split established here becomes the show's ongoing format, and the unresolved family separation drives the season's overarching plot as both timelines work toward the same goal of reunion. The series draws on a mix of survival drama and speculative science fiction, using a real, recognizable Los Angeles setting as its jumping-off point before pivoting into full prehistoric adventure territory, a structural choice that set it apart from other genre shows airing around the same time. La Brea's first episode does the hard work every genre pilot needs to do. It grounds you in a relatable family before pulling the rug out from under them, and it earns its central twist by letting the mystery unfold visually instead of over-explaining it. Whether the show sustained that promise across its full run is a fair debate, but as an opening hour, it accomplishes exactly what it sets out to do. What did you think of how this episode set up the family's separation? And do you think the mystery paid off later in the series? Let us know your thoughts and favorite moments in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, give the video a like, subscribe to Screen Central for more web series, TV series, and movie breakdowns, ending explained videos, and detailed episode analyses, and turn on notifications so you never miss a future upload.